This woman was abused by her SDA father in the worst possible way for years. Her name is Charlotte Hayes, and she recently appeared on a podcast called Cults to Consciousness to discuss her experience. She discussed what it was like being raised by SDA parents who adopted her when she was 1.5 years old, going to SDA schools, and finally escaping her abuse. I'm going to be playing clips of her podcast and responding to them in this video. But before I do that, if you're looking for a Bible that will take your study to the next level, check out the Maranatha Study Bible. This Bible is loaded with features. Take a look.
The Maranatha Study Bible. An incredible Bible filled with resources to help you better understand God's Word and gain a deeper understanding of its teachings. This Bible comes complete with study notes and has a plethora of informative articles arranged by categories and easily findable using the helpful indexes. As well as the textual references and verse-by-verse commentaries you would expect to find, this edition comes with so much more than your average study Bible. It contains amazing additional features, including infographics on the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation. These combine reliable information with visual representations to help you obtain a better understanding of major Bible prophecies. The words of God and Jesus highlighted in red. Maps and illustrations with notes to help you better understand the biblical world. An original dictionary of biblical and theological terms with close to 500 entries. A fantastic timeline of Bible history in the Christian Church, showing the chronology of the books of the Bible, the archaeological periods, the reigns of the kings of Israel and Judah, key dates in Christianity, a list of the reformers, and much more.
Click on the link in the video description to order your very own Maranatha Study Bible today. It's an affiliate link, which means I earn a small commission with no additional cost to you. So by purchasing through the link I provided, you help support my social media ministry. Now back to my video.
Adventist school, it was infused into everything. It was involved, like when we were learning about the planets, it was involved with religion and like how God created it and not whatever science tells you. It was first grade. I just remember them just being like, God created the animals, God created the plants, God created you, God created XYZ, and it just was never, this is how the planets may have really actually formed.
As you can see, Charlotte is kind of critical of her Adventist education. I was watching her podcast interview and I got the impression that she never really accepted the Adventist faith. And I don't blame her for it. I do have some sympathy for her because her parents, who tried to raise her in this way of life, were at the same time abusing her. So it's completely understandable to me that she would reject them and everything they are associated with, which includes the Adventist way of life. And also, it's a Christian school, so what do you expect them to teach? They're going to teach how life started according to the Bible. The Bible teaches that God created all life on earth, and every living creature would reproduce after its kind. For example, Genesis chapter 1 verse 24 states, "Then God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind." And it was so. But in the public school system, evolution is taught, which claims that all life on earth came from a single common ancestor through random mutations and natural selection over millions of years. But if you take a look around, what do you see? Do you see life forms mutating and evolving? Or do you see distinct forms of life, like humans, cats, and dogs, reproducing after their kind, just like the Bible said they would from the beginning? You see what the Bible says. So just by simple observation, you can see that the Bible is right and evolution is wrong. Sorry for veering off course a little bit here, but I gotta say something. I hate evolution. It undermines the very foundation of the Bible's teachings about creation, sin, and salvation. It's a truly demonic deception designed to make people doubt God's word and lose faith in their creator. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they teach this to young children in school. Young minds are very impressionable. My oldest daughter, who is 11, is being taught this in school right now because she goes to a public school, which is a Catholic school, but that's a discussion for another time. And we've already had a few conversations about this, and fortunately, I've been able to fortify her mind with the truth enough so that she doesn't fall for this lie. We didn't come from monkeys with no purpose in life. We were created in the image of an all-powerful God who loves us and has a plan for our lives.
So let's talk about your family unit in the sense of what you were expected to do. Like how strict were they as a household within the religious context?
Extremely strict, I would say. I wasn't allowed, with the Adventists, there's the sundown to sundown rule. So it's Friday night, which is Vespers, into Saturday night for the Sabbath. So that's like God's time. And so sundown to sundown, nobody was allowed to really be on their phones. TV wasn't really an option unless it was like Narnia, because that was somehow, it is slightly religious. The undertones are religious. Even when I was older, I wasn't able to do any of the high school football games or any of the dances. So prom, homecoming, banquet, wasn't able to do any of those because they always landed on a Friday night or a Saturday. Same with some sports teams. Couldn't do swim team because most meets are on Saturday. So a lot of those things I was restricted in what I could and couldn't do.
That's kind of funny because one of the few things I allow my kids to watch on the Sabbath is Narnia as well. My oldest two daughters aren't into it so much anymore because they've seen all of the movies, but my youngest still likes it. I also allow them to watch videos that have something to do with biblical or nature themes, but I would rather do something with them than have them sit in front of the TV all day. But like Charlotte, I also don't take my kids to places on the Sabbath that we might go to during the week, like the mall or the public pool or whatever. The Sabbath is meant to be different. It's a day devoted to God and family, to strengthen the bond between us. And if we treat it like any other day, it will lose its value. So instead of viewing the Sabbath as a restriction, look at it as a privilege. This day gives us the privilege of resting from our labors, going to church to assemble with like-minded believers, and doing things to strengthen our relationship with God and with each other.
What would you say was the hardest part growing up in that world?
The secrets.
The secrets. Okay, spill the tea. What kind of secrets are we talking about?
The church is very secretive. You don't tell people unless you want them to know. And it also gossips. So we have a thing in the Adventist church called call to prayer, or garden of prayer is another one, where it's middle of the church sermon. They'll pause and they'll get prayer requests from people in the church. And we will say what we need prayer for, but I would just say that's Adventist gossip, where you get to hear what other people are going through and then you get to gossip about it. Or it's even if you know somebody is going through something, they'll spill it.
Tell me more about these secrets. I was waiting for the juicy part, but she never delivered. And in terms of gossip, yeah, that happens sometimes. That happens everywhere. Unfortunately, that happens in God's church too. But I haven't seen prayer used as an excuse to gossip myself. We have prayer time during service in my church, just like Charlotte did in hers, but I don't remember ever seeing that as an occasion to gossip in the church that I go to, at least. Most of the gossip I have heard was just during casual conversation with Adventist women. All right, men do it too sometimes, but women's gossip is more refined. They're better at it. They got it down to a science. And this is not with everybody, and it doesn't happen all the time. And I'm not saying that I'm totally innocent either, but it happens, and it's shameful. I may have said too much. Let's change the subject.
What was it like in your family?
We did not eat meat because I was adopted, and a lot of the things that happened to me growing up, they kept me strictly raw vegan. And everyone else in my house could eat as normal. I
What?
could eat other things like when I was like out with extended family members. So it's like if I was out with family members, I could have some more of those normal foods, but I was never allowed to say that at home, behind closed doors, it was raw vegan only.
Was that for religious reasons?
I control, maybe.
The SDA Church does promote a plant-based diet. It's not required and you won't be disfellowshipped for not eating a plant-based diet, but that's what God designed us to eat, and we see that even after God created man in the book of Genesis. God said in Genesis chapter 1 verse 29, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food." So we were designed to eat plant food. Man was not designed to eat meat, even though God allowed the consumption of clean meat in the Bible. You can get away with it, but it's not ideal when it comes to your health and spirituality. But what I've never seen the Adventist Church do is promote a raw vegan diet, at least not in the long term. This may have some detoxing benefits if you do it for the short term, but in the long term, you can become nutritionally deficient. So I already see that Charlotte's parents were taking things to extremes, especially if they required her to follow such a strict diet while not adhering to it themselves. That's a red flag and seems hypocritical and narcissistic, if you ask me.
So did you feel like you were getting enough nutrition?
I did not. A lot of people even express that. So like teachers growing up would make remarks to them or to me. Classmates would say something to me for being too small. At the end of the day, that was my former mother's doing, and that is what she wanted. She wanted to hear those comments of me being small. She wanted me to be like deathly thin.
Why do you think that is?
More control.
So she was just a sadistic person in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, that was not healthy parenting. Something is definitely wrong with this picture. Now Charlotte is going to get into her abuse by her father.
Earliest memories that I remember, it especially with like childhood sexual abuse, like it started very young, I would say, around like 7, 8. It started very slow. So it started a lot with like touching, hands being grabbed very tightly. So that's kind of like how it had started for me.
And did you want to say which family member this was?
Yeah, my former father was the one who did this.
I'm so sorry. That's so awful, especially when you purposely bring a child into your life through adoption, a helpless child who just needs a home, and then you exploit them. It really just makes me sick that there are people out there who would do something like that.
I personally believe they adopted me just for it to look good, because in the Adventist world, they want you to be perfect. They want you to look good. They want to hold you up on a pedestal. And so the adoption and like the miracle of adoption is very much that narrative, which fits for the Adventist church very well. So I think I was adopted just to look good for their family photos.
Now, I'm no psychologist, but that sounds like typical narcissistic behavior. Narcissists like to present a positive picture of themselves to the world, while in their personal lives, they are abusive and controlling to those closest to them. And from what Charlotte is saying about her parents, it sounds like either both of them were narcissistic or her mother was narcissistic while her father was a predator who was grooming her for abuse from a young age. This is very disturbing. It is very sick. I wouldn't say this is any fault of the Adventist Church. The Adventist Church doesn't have a culture that protects these kinds of predators, but it seems like since he raised Charlotte in this religion, she made that association in her mind, which is understandable, just misguided. People like Charlotte's father aren't Christians. They are predators who infiltrate churches for their own twisted ends. And Jesus strongly condemned them. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 6, he said, But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea.
Did your former mother know about the sexual abuse?
Yes. So I would say like rape started a bit older, but she was aware of it. There were times where she would watch in the doorway.
What?
Or she would, after my former father was finished, she would take me to the bathroom and watch me shower with a clear shower curtain.
That's disgusting. She is just as guilty as he is for letting that happen.
How did you feel as a child knowing that both of your parents, both of your caregivers were completely failing you? Did you have any adult around you who you felt like you could confide in and talk to about this?
At the time, I didn't know it was wrong. Because when it's so normalized from such a young age and you're kept in such a bubble, like the majority of my friends were Adventists, and then I'm being told growing up to not tell anyone, or something will happen to me or something to them. So it like instills fear in you for like the safety of your family, for yourself, and for how it's going to affect that family image. You just stay quiet.
Yeah.
And at that age, like, because it had happened for so long, the leap from just like touching and grabbing to full-fledged rape wasn't really much of a jump at all.
Yeah, she was conditioned and groomed to accept this. Her father was a master manipulator.
I can see how that would make sense in your head as a child when both parents are, no one's trying to stop it. No one's having this conversation with you. I know that within the church, there are extreme purity culture rules. How did that clash in your head, knowing what they're teaching you at church and then knowing what's going on at home?
What's interesting is purity culture, I feel like, at least for me, I didn't hear it a ton until I was older.
Okay.
But when I was older and it was brought up, it was a lot of my former father saying like, well, we're just getting you ready, or so you know. Or it was, well, you're still technically a virgin because I'm your father, so this doesn't really count. And God's telling me to do this to you.
Has the statute of limitations run out on this crime? Because if not, and this is true, he needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He's guilty of years of intentional grooming, manipulation, and abuse. Some of you may be thinking, how can you say that? You're supposed to be a Christian. What about grace? Grace is fine, and God can forgive abusers if they repent, and I hope her father has sought that, but that doesn't absolve people of their crimes. If you do the crime, you do the time. That's how it goes. Trust me, I know. I mean, I never abused children, but I used to be a criminal and spent 8 years in federal prison for drug and gun crimes, and saw plenty of people like Charlotte's father in the prison system, and they did not have it easy. One time I was in the TV room watching To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen with a bunch of inmates, and this young guy was getting arrested on TV for soliciting you-know-what with an underage girl. And someone in the TV room was like, hey, that's him. And we all looked over, and that same guy was sitting right there with us in the TV room. He tried to deny it, but it was him, and then I think he finally admitted it, and he got extorted by some gang for a couple of weeks, and then he PC'd up. Next, Charlotte explains when she started to realize that things were not right after she spent the night at a friend's house for the first time.
And so I had finally gotten the okay to go and do this sleepover. My friend's dad, when we were going to bed, he came in, said goodnight. He left the room, closed the door, closing the door would never have been allowed in my home. Closed doors was never allowed. He came in, said goodnight, left, and did not come back. And I thought that was just kind of like a one-time, fluke. He was just putting on a show.
Yeah.
Because at that time, because it was so normal for me, I kind of thought it was normal for everyone else.
Right.
I remember that next day asking her, being like, last night, when your dad left, but does he ever come back in later? And she was like, no, he's never. And that, I think, was the first time where things started to just feel a little bit more wrong than normal.
How old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
I had to have been at least in my teens.
Now watch what Charlotte says about the Adventist church.
Most people, when you say that you grew up Adventist, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. They don't know about it. This church is massive, and yet it's like one of the most under talked about church.
That's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So is that because they truly don't want people to convert? Or, I mean, what's the reason for the secrecy, really?
I have no idea. No idea. I mean, with Mormons, you see them going like door to door. You see JWs going door to door. But I mean, with Adventists, I have not once ever seen an Adventist like missionary going to a door to offer up their religion.
I can relate to that. I've had visits from Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons at different times in my life, but I was never visited by an Adventist, even though I'm an Adventist today. To be honest, if it weren't for the book The Great Controversy by Ellen White, I don't know if I'd ever know what an Adventist is. I became a Christian when I was in prison, and I came across the book The Great Controversy in the prison library and learned about the Seventh-day Adventists by reading it. Afterwards, I personally sought out the Adventist Church and ended up becoming a member after studying their doctrines. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about what Adventists believe, I'll leave a link to some free online Bible courses in the video description. And in my experience, Adventist lay people aren't big on outreach. It's rare to find them going door to door or handing out brochures and literature like you find other organizations doing, at least in America or in Poland, where I live now. But at the same time, they do have great media ministries like Amazing Facts and 3ABN, which I enjoy watching. And there's my channel too. I'm not officially endorsed by the church or anything like that. Neither does the church disavow me. I'm a member in good standing. But I started my social media ministry because I wanted to do something for the Lord. I didn't want to just be a seat warmer at church. I felt a burden to share the gospel with others, knowing that Jesus is coming soon. And by the grace of God, since I started my channel, my videos have been viewed over 70 million times around the world. And they consistently get hundreds of thousands of views on a monthly basis. And I also have you to thank for that, for your prayers and donations, because without your financial support, this would not be possible. By the way, if you're not a supporter of my channel yet, but you would like to be, just click on the donate link in the video description. It will take you to my PayPal account where you can make a monthly pledge or a one-time donation. Thank you for your support. Now Charlotte talks about when CPS started investigating her abuse.
In fact, part of this was trying to get the authorities involved in your case, right? And it just, nothing happened, nothing came from it?
Yes, that would be correct. CPS started getting involved in high school. I had done a one-year stint at Shenandoah Valley Academy, SVA. It's a Adventist boarding school in Newmarket, Virginia. And then after that year, I switched back to public. But during that public school year, the teachers started noticing marks on my body. They had seen carpet burns on the back of my arms from being dragged on a carpet.
Oh my gosh.
They had noticed, even my freshman year at the boarding school, like they had noticed I came to school with like a pretty good gash on the center of my forehead from being hit into the corner of a wall, but I had told them that I tripped and cornered my bunk bed.
With that, people started noticing, and did they call the authorities? Did they ask you about it first, or did they just go ahead and call?
Yeah, so the public school, they talked to me first. Like a teacher, my American Sign Language teacher, she had pulled me out into the hallway and was like, something's going on. Like, you need to tell us because you continuously come to school with marks on your body, and it's getting to a point where like your excuses just aren't matching up, and today you have a black eye. Like, you didn't just do whatever you're gonna say that you did. And I was like, oh no, I like tripped, I hit a doorknob, it's fine. And she was like, that is a big fat lie. But at the same time, like, they can only go off of what you're saying. They can't make assumptions, but they can report. And because of it, like, they still did report to CPS. And that was apparently like this whole day long process for them. I didn't know that it was an all day process. I just knew that I went back to class, and then like I would say like midday, I had gotten called back to the main office, and they were like, so this is what's happening. We need to talk with you. So like I was talking with the principal, not the principal, the vice principal, my sign language teacher, and one other teacher in the office talking about what happened. And I'm just in the corner like, no, I tripped and hit a doorknob, I swear. Because I had been so conditioned over years to not ever tell anyone what was going on. And the fear for my life at that moment, if I told, it was gonna be bad if I did.
Did they ever come to your house and talk to your former parents?
They did, mainly because of one statement that I had made when I was talking with the sign language teacher. There was at one point where she was really just honing in and was not giving me a break from saying that it was just a doorknob. I was like, what you think happened is probably true. Like, I didn't want to say, yes, I'm being hit at home, I'm being raped at home. I didn't want to say anything. But I figured that if I phrased it just enough, that would give them something to work on, and that is what launched the CPS investigation.
I mean, I'm even afraid to ask this. Did that make it worse at home?
Once I made that statement to my sign language teacher and went to the vice principal's office and was like talking with them, I was backpedaling because I knew that like once CPS got involved, it was going to be rough for me at home. So I immediately was like taking it back, and I'm like, no, I didn't mean that. What I meant to say was I tripped and hit a doorknob. And they were like, well, we know that's not true, but also we can't do much with you not saying anything. And so they had launched the CPS investigation, but I still had to go home with my father. So they had called and picked to have him pick me up.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And this was the last day before winter break. So I was going to be alone with him for 2 weeks. No school. So they were terrified. They were terrified. And I've spoken with those teachers and the vice principal since, and they've told me, they were like, we were absolutely terrified to send you home, but we didn't have anything to keep you.
So it's not like people didn't try to help Charlotte. It doesn't seem like anybody was intentionally turning a blind eye to her abuse. But like she said, they could only go off what she told them. And I'm sure if she was more forthcoming, things would have been different. Next, Charlotte talks about when she started realizing that she had same-sex attraction.
On top of all of this, something that we haven't touched on yet that I do feel like is an important part of your story is within purity culture, you're learning about abstinence, whatever, man and woman should only lie together. Meanwhile, you're having these realizations that you are attracted to women. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to know? I get so clammy.
You're fine. So at what age did you recognize that you weren't attracted to men? Meanwhile, you're getting this very strong messaging from the church about how you are expected to act when you get older.
Yeah, my former mother would watch Grey's Anatomy, it's still running. I was very young when I first saw clips of it. I would sneak into my parents' room and kind of hide a little bit behind the fireplace. I had a weird layout of a room, so I was safe on the other side of it. Very quietly, I would watch some Grey's while she was watching it. And so Grey's Anatomy is the first time that I even saw a woman with another woman as a relationship. So Callie and Arizona in Grey's Anatomy, they were dating, they had a kid together. And that was the first realization. I didn't know what the word lesbian was. I didn't know what the word gay or queer was. I didn't know any of that. I just knew that what they had, I liked. And I wanted to see more of that. And that something in me felt right with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then didn't you have situations with your former mother of her expressly saying that this is wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yes. We would, even in public, like we would go to like Walmart for getting groceries. There was a lesbian couple in the aisles getting their own thing, doing their own thing, not minding anyone else. And she would look at me and she would be like, what they're doing is wrong. They're going to go to hell. They're never going to be saved. That is an abomination. right there. And I want you to have nothing to ever to do with that. Don't have friends like that. Don't involve yourself with that ever. So she grabbed my hand very tightly and we walked and went to a different aisle.
Did you know at this point that you had those feelings?
Yes. At that point, I knew that I was gay. And at that point, I had learned through my public school, you learn things, that I was queer.
Well, it's not like her mother was completely wrong. The Bible is pretty clear on same-sex conduct. But if her mother wasn't nurturing her in the faith in love and her father was abusing her, how can you expect Charlotte to respect and obey them? I want to comment on something Charlotte said here as well. She said that when she saw a lesbian couple on TV, it felt right to her. This reminds me of a verse in the Bible, Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, which states, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." We have a sinful nature with evil desires. That's something all of us struggle with. And it's easy to justify our desires because they make us feel good. But not everything that feels good is good for us. That's why we can't rely on our feelings to tell us what's right or wrong. We need to rely on God's word. The Bible shows us what true love and righteousness look like, even when it goes against our desires. Desires that conflict with the word of God are temptations. Sometimes people experience these temptations and think, this must mean I'm gay or lesbian or whatever. But that's not the case. Your urges don't define you. Your actions do. So recognize those urges as temptations and resist them by the power of God.
What did that do to your mental state, knowing that just in another way, in another roundabout way, or direct way, not roundabout way, that you were not what they wanted you to be, which could also put you in a further dangerous situation?
Yeah, it just became another secret. And at that point, secrets just become part of you. Like you don't know anything different than secrets. You're used to just keeping things to yourself and not saying things, except this was something that I had to keep from my parents, which made it almost easier in a way. Like I could kind of tell other people, even in school, like some of my public school friends, I would like mention and be like, oh, like I really like their relationship. And like that was just like me expressing it in like the smallest of ways.
Okay, so I think I get it now. When Charlotte was talking about secrets in the Seventh-day Adventist Church earlier, she wasn't necessarily talking about secrets that the church keeps from the outside world. She was talking about secrets that she was keeping from her parents and others. At least that's what I think she's saying. Let me know if you're interpreting this the same way in the comments section. Because I found the Adventist Church to be very open about their history and doctrines. They're published online for the world to see. I don't know of any secrets the Adventist Church is hiding from people. So when Charlotte said that earlier, I was confused.
With all of this going on, you hit a breaking point and you realize, oh wait, before we get there, I wanted to talk about your boarding school a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are definitely some stories there, being boarded specifically at an Adventist school your freshman year?
Freshman year, yes.
And what was the decision to put you in that school? I feel like that's off character from what I know about your former parents to actually allow you to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it was definitely off their usual, for sure. They sent me and let me go. I want to say let me, because they sent my brother, but they let me go. So I had gotten a gymnastics scholarship, and so I had gone and wanted to go there because I had seen that my brother at the time had loved his time. So I had also wanted to go.
So what was it like?
I would say even stricter than my church at home. I mean, they had the weirdest rules. The skirts for church, if you were to wear a skirt to church, it had to be at least and no shorter than 2 inches above the knee. But if you were to wear your school skirt uniform to class, that had to be to the knee. Which you would think that you would want those two things switched,
Yeah.
be more modest for church and slightly less, like 2 inches less modest for class.
Yeah, that is weird.
couldn't have phones. They would cut our power at night. So at like, I want to say like 9:30, 10-ish, they would cut the power. Like with the breaker, they would turn them all off. Get our phones taken away. So you're just in the dark. So if you're in the shower and you haven't timed that correctly, you're taking a shower in the dark.
What was the purpose of that? Just to make sure you went to sleep?
To make sure we went to bed. Like no light's going to keep us up. I don't know.
That seems extreme.
Yep. And then if you were like in the RA hall or the honor hall, like specifically honor hall, like if you had like all A's or all A's and B's, you were put on a separate floor and you got to keep your power and you got to keep your phone because you were deemed responsible enough.
Where did you land?
I did not land in the honor hall. No.
Okay.
I had to put my phone away a lot.
Those rules don't seem that bad to me. Having standards of modesty and limiting smartphone use, I think those are actually good ideas. I recently bought my oldest daughters their own smartphone, and I can tell you if I don't limit their use, they would just be on their phones all the time. So that's a challenge, not only for my children, but also for adults. It's a challenge for me sometimes. And so far, the things that Charlotte says she experienced in the Adventist school system don't seem that bad at all. They actually seem pretty responsible. Charlotte also describes a foot washing ritual she was forced to do with an older man.
There was a story in the Bible where Jesus washed a woman's feet. And then the woman had also washed Jesus's feet and then dried them with her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Adventist church, I think that's kind of where the foot washing really stems from. They didn't have enough people, it was for Vespers. It was a Friday night. And so we had gone to the school's church to do like the communion and to do the foot washing. And there weren't enough classmates for everybody to do it with me. So they had invited some families that were Adventist in the local community because Newmarket is a tiny little town and the majority of that town is Adventist. And so they had some of them come over. Fortunately, nobody was my same gender or age, and so they didn't want that. So I got paired with like a 60-year-old man and had to wash his feet, and I felt very uncomfortable by that request. And so I went to my dean and I was like, I'm not washing a 60-year-old man's feet. It's inappropriate. I don't feel comfortable. And she was pretty much like, well, you can either do it or go back to your dorm and get a suspension. I took the suspension because I was not washing some random guy's feet.
I think Charlotte was right in this case. We do foot washing in our church during our communion service, and women are always paired with women and vice versa. Also, nobody is forced to take part. So if her school really did try to force her to do that, I think they were in the wrong. Hey, when Charlotte is right, she is right. I'm not trying to diminish the abuse that she experienced, and I may not agree with all of her statements about Adventism, but this case seems to be totally inappropriate.
I had kind of reached a breaking point mental health-wise, and I was done. I just wanted everything to be done. I had tried telling teachers that clearly didn't work. CPS, that didn't work. I had told one of my pastors, she was a female pastor, which is very unheard of in the Adventist church. I know. I love her. She's great. She tried to reach out to CPS around that time, but apparently it was already an active investigation. So she couldn't add to the report.
How does that make sense?
Which is kind of weird. Like, you would think that more complaints on an open investigation would actually give the investigation more standing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. She could have reported it maybe like a month later when it was closed and have another investigation reopened. But at that time, it wasn't going to work.
So props to her for actually trying to report it to authorities, because that is something that does not happen often within these cult site control groups. They try to handle it internally, but she was like, no, we need to go to the authorities with this.
Yeah, and I know that, I don't know if this happened after me leaving or before, but I do know, I really think it was before, but she had spoken with not only CPS, but she had also spoken with the church conference to see how they could minimize my former father's roles in the church. He worked on the praise team. And so they tried to find, she even spoke with church legal to see what they could do, and there wasn't a whole lot of options unless like he had been like arrested or something.
This is proof the Adventist church tried to help her when she actually told somebody about her abuse. That's why I hate the thumbnail for this video. It says, Predator's Paradise, Seventh-day Adventism. It makes it sound like the Adventist church was complicit in her abuse, when, if you watch Charlotte's interview, that's not what happened at all. Nobody in the Adventist church tried to ignore her abuse or keep her quiet. Instead, when she finally told the pastor what was really going on, she reported it to CPS. If anything, it sounds like the church tried to help her, and CPS failed her. In another video, Charlotte explained that when she was 18 years old, she finally got the courage to run away from home and escape her abuse. I have no reason to doubt that Charlotte was abused by a predator who just happened to be a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But you can't blame the entire religious organization for her abuse, especially when they didn't know he was a predator and that she was being abused. If those facts would have come to light sooner, I think that her situation would have been much different. Yes, the Seventh-day Adventist Church may have high moral standards, and their schools may be a little strict sometimes. I'm taking Charlotte's word for this because I never attended an Adventist school. But what the church and the Adventist school system is not is a haven for predators. I did not get that impression at all by watching Charlotte's interview, and I think it's misleading to try to insinuate that in the thumbnail. Also, the Adventist church is not a cult. It does not try to control the lives of its members. I know this because I've been a Seventh-day Adventist for 20 years, and there's no one I have to answer to in the church except Jesus. There's nobody checking up on me, making sure I'm following all of the doctrines and teachings, or else I have to face some consequences. The teachings that I do follow, I follow them willingly because I believe in them. That's what I want to do, not what I'm forced to do. And I've had some shortcomings in my life, which I've talked to members of my church about. And you know what happened? They were very gracious and understanding, and they offered to pray and help me instead of judging me. But you're just going to have to find out for yourself. If you want to know what the Adventist church is really like, I challenge you to use Google Maps and find an Adventist church near you. Tell them Greg from Incredible Bible Revelations sent you. Then come back and leave a comment to let me know what your experience was like. I'll be looking forward to it. Click on the screen to check out some more of my videos. I have a lot of good Christian videos, which I'm sure you'll enjoy if you liked this one. Also, please like and share this video to help spread God's word. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.